Hey, thank you everyone for coming back to DFW Discovered here. We are with Phil over here at the Cajun Market and Cafe in Colleyville, Texas. Phil, thank you so much for visiting us with us today, and we're happy to have you. And I hear this place is phenomenal. I've tried it a few times, and I love it every time. So, nice. Phil, thank you so much for having us today.
Great having you.
Phil, tell us why you chose the Cajun Market Cafe in Colleyville, Texas.
Okay, simplified. Let's start with the fact that when I got here in 2009, wrapping up my career in the financial world, I kept going around looking for Cajun places, and there weren't any, at least authentic. There are a lot of chains, and as we know, Dallas, Fort Worth, that was a big chain place, but you couldn't find anything authentic. And my wife, funny story, we were dating 4 or 5 months. She actually called me. She said, "We need to talk." And I said, "Really?" So what's up? She says, "You're the biggest food snob I've ever met." I said, "I'm sorry. I come up from the food capital of the universe, practically." I said, "I've got to do something." She said, "Well, why don't you do something?" Colleyville, we lived here, but more so, you know, there are almost 1 million Louisiana people here, a lot of Cajun heritage, and they're spread out all over the metroplex. And the unique thing about them is they're like me. They know the authenticity of the food. They understand, they have a select palate. They can tell that's not real, this is. And they will drive practically an hour from anywhere. I've got folks that drive from Waco, Allen, up in Oklahoma, Sherman, East Dallas, out from the west side of Fort Worth. It's crazy. But it was part of my plan. I figured if I was in the centrally located part, of which Colleyville pretty much is dead center of the metroplex, that it would give somebody the opportunity to get to me fairly easily.
That's awesome. You know, a lot of people have mentioned the Cajun Market Cafe to me over the last year and a half, 2 years have been open. Tell us when you actually opened and in what time of year. I mean, it was like in the worst time you could have opened up a restaurant, wasn't it?
Yeah, I almost spit my coffee out. You know, with my financial background, I coached a lot of businesses along the way, and I'd always tell them, don't go into a new business with just enough capital to start. I can't tell you what's going to come up, but I can promise you in the first year or two, something is going to come up where you need cash reserves or a great credit line at the bank. No, I didn't know COVID was on the map. I started the demo in this building, which was an old farmer's market, January of 2020. Of course, COVID comes along, starts making its presence in March and April, really starts to hit at the time that we're getting ready to open in June. Now, I didn't know that COVID was coming, but there was another event that I was prepared for, and that was an election. I knew that that's an election year, anything could change. So you kind of, we were prepared in a sense. Fortunately, what helped us is when we opened, while many restaurants had to close, we had all these market products that you see on the table. So we're considered a market at the time, and our health inspector said, no, you don't have to close, you get to stay open. And it actually gave an opportunity. We always felt the Louisiana crowd knew what they were going to get. They know the food. But it was the non-Louisiana, implanted from elsewhere in the country crowd that's heard about Cajun, but they've tried a lot of chains and they haven't really had authentic. So we were wondering, okay, what's going to happen there? And COVID actually played into our hand. They got tired of hamburgers and pizza and fried chicken and everything else like I did. So they would stop in and say, oh my gosh, is this what gumbo's supposed to taste like? Is this what a po' boy is really all about? Or etouffee or whatever the dishes were. And it was a great opportunity to shake a few hands. I tell people the funny part is, you know, we always want to do our best to get to know our customers, right?
Yeah.
No matter what.
Right.
So I've had to go through a relearning curve. For the first 2 years, is all I saw was your eyes. Now I get to see faces. And I've had to go through the relearning curve of
who they are.
Who are you again?
Right.
I know you by your eyes, but I can't
yeah.
see by your face.
Yeah, that's
so,
good.
We have a very loyal crowd. They come back, tremendous support.
So you and I had a discussion about where you get your food from. I understand most of it's local here. Again, give us a little bit about that.
Well, fortunately, I grew up in a town called Holmont, Louisiana, which, looking at the map, is about 70 miles southwest of New Orleans, where they talk like that as Cajuns. When they say down the bayou, that's down the bayou. But it's also where the predominant amount of Gulf shrimp, crab, blue crab, oysters, soft-shell crabs, those sort of things come from. Then we move over to sort of the central part, a little bit toward the southwest of Lafayette, Louisiana, where most of your specialty meats, boudin, tasso, andouille, smoked sausages, a lot of meats that Cajuns cook with. And then you get a little bit further west is where your crawfish come from. So virtually everything in the store, as far as the product, comes from Louisiana. It comes fresh from the Gulf, the estuaries, the swamps, if you will, the spillways, etc. And that's how we wanted it. We wanted, no offense to the local big food suppliers, which we use obviously for things in our kitchen, but as far as the core products, the seafood, the meats, those are all Louisiana originals.
That's awesome. So this morning I walked up and I saw a truckload of crawfish being unloaded. How often are you getting truckloads of product? Is it every day?
Almost. We're closed on Monday, so Tuesdays, which carry us to Tuesday, Wednesday, and then because weekends obviously are so big for most crawfish eaters, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
There you go.
Deliveries. It doesn't get much fresher, and by the way, that is a plus for us because a lot of places simply get crawfish here once a week. Those go back to...
And you're getting them almost once a day.
Yeah. They go back to a lot of old relationships. I jokingly tell people, they always say, what are Cajuns like? And I said, we're a very familial, work hard, play hard, closed-in culture. But I'll tell you something unique I learned. The 1964 Civil Rights Act, not that it has anything to do with food, but I learned something recently that I didn't know. In addition to what it did for the African American community, specifically Cajun was segregated as its own ethnic culture in that bill. And Cajuns are very proud people, but if you're one of them, in my case, when I go home, I could probably get into doors that other people are not going to get into. So that helps us a whole lot. Like that truck you saw today, crawfish, for instance, nowadays are formed in rice fields. They've been converted over the years. After the rice is formed, the crawfish come out, and no one form can supply. So it's like any other farming cooperative. You've got multiple farmers that tie together. Some of them will produce 5,000 sacks of crawfish a day.
Wow.
Okay, or 5,000 pounds of crawfish a day, I should say. That's a lot of crawfish.
Yeah. Does that help feed your people here in one weekend?
We probably do about 10,000 pounds a week between live and boiled. We don't set the world on fire as far as the largest, but we seem to draw a whole lot of people.
So what kind of seasonings do you put to marry the palate of the taste of Cajun?
It's a combination. Of course, you start with the basic roux in most Cajun dishes, which is a combination, equal parts flour, equal parts oil. Not every dish uses a roux, but most do. Mm-hmm. Then comes what are called the Holy Trinity. Not to meant the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, but in this particular case, onion, bell pepper, and celery.
Gotcha.
They're almost the base of every Cajun dish. Generally sauteed down, and it's a combination of salt, pepper, cumin, some cayenne. Some people tend to be a little bit more like the Italian culture, like a little more garlic in their cooking. Some like a little more onion powder in their cooking. But it's a combination of different basic seasonings that but it centers around the roux and that Holy Trinity.
Gotcha. So Phil, you talked about some signature meats that you can only get here at the Cajun Market where you can't get them at a local store. Give us a little blip on that.
Real quickly. Yeah. The southern west part of Louisiana, from Lafayette to Lake Charles, is specifically known for their specialty meats. Boudin, tasso, andouille. Those have been generationally around for years. And it just centers around one quick thing. Again, the living off the land. The Cajuns used to have what was called a boucherie, where that was a big term for hog killing. Nothing went to waste. Head meat was used to make hogshead cheese, which is very popular. The boudin today is different. It's pork shoulder, sliced chicken liver, little rice, all the seasonings, the Trinity we talked about. But they love using the smoked sausages. Andouille is typical to gumbo. And the thing about our meats that are different than walking into a typical grocery is that there's no preservatives and no MSG. They're all fresh and specialty made.
Nice, awesome. You mind showing us around a little bit?
We're going to see some crawfish?
Let's go.
All right.
Thank you so much for visiting us today here at DFW Discovered. My name is John Picinic here, Sales Manager, Trinity Oaks Mortgage. My number, if you need to reach my team, is 817-846-2800, or you can find me on the web at www.mortgagesbyjohn.com. Give us a call today. Take care. See you next time.